We have a very special guest in the studio. Would you like to introduce yourself?
This is Bubba Crumrine from Ithaca Underground.
Yeah, and would you talk a little bit about what you do for Ithaca Underground?
Absolutely. I am the president of the board for Ithaca Underground. I've been running what we do since 2008, which includes, at this point, over 60 all-ages events a year, all across downtown, sometimes up here as well. A volunteer crew of over 50 individuals from downtown, IC, the high schools, Cornell, and just generally making a inclusive space that's available for all to experience new and challenging music.
Yeah, and how did you, inherit or, get involved with Ithaca Underground?
Oh, that's a really fun story. So, it was summer of 2008, and I had a band called Bizarre Guillemots, and Mel and I had been going out to Ithaca Underground shows. It had been going on for about a year. My partner Mel had helped get some bands on there, and I hit up Jamie, who was running at the time, and I was like, Jamie, why haven't you accepted my band's ad on MySpace? And he was like, I'm really busy. Do you want to run our MySpace page? And I was like, sure. And a week later, he was like, I'm really busy. Do you want to run Ithaca Underground? And it was really in a week's time, I went from, hey, I want to play a show, and then my band breaking up, to just taking the whole thing over. And we ended up, doing probably about 8 shows the second half of that year, July through December. And then the next year, we did something ridiculous, like 40 or 50 shows, Mel and I running everything, doors, sound, booking bands, housing bands at our place, and just ran with it from there.
Yeah, and so how have you seen it evolve, and how have you made it evolve to what it is today?
Yeah, it's been a great growth story. We realized early on that it was really the youth that were the most interested in what we were doing. And so we took it upon us. It was like, okay, all of our shows have to be all ages. This needs to be available to everybody. And so we wanted to make sure, that it was going to be affordable. And we were sort of trying to figure out, how are we going to do that? So we realized early on that it would make the most sense to make it a not-for-profit. It was a hobby for a while, but it was like, we're never going to make money on this. This is never going to be our living. Let's figure out what we need to do to make the infrastructure there so this sustains forever. Because most scenes kind of ebb and flow every 3 or 4 years as people come and go, and get busy. So we figured we'd get on the track to turn it into a 501c3 not-for-profit. I pulled together a board, including Eric Lane from McNeil Music, George Johan from Angry Mom Records, Ryan Clover from Talent City Distro and the Alternatives Library. And together we spearheaded it, and about almost 2 years ago, we got our 501c3 status, and we, with the help of Carrie Cooper, one of our awesome newer board members, we had our first all-volunteer meeting, got 40, young people involved from across the community, and it just completely exploded with what we were able to do. We're able to do more shows now. They're better organized. We've got documentation for video and photo on everything. Our volunteers are running a door. We're training them how to do sound engineering. So it's turned into, from this fun thing to do for a handful of people who just want to run around to a punk show, to doing all these different subversive genres, from noise and punk to more of the indie pop stuff and electronic music, onto what we did with Naked Noise last night. And from doing it for a handful of people to it being a real movement that's bringing together all the different areas of Ithaca.
Cool. Could you elaborate on what you see the current mission of IU to be?
Yeah, definitely. So at the core of it, it's always that inclusive nature. So much of the time, if you're new to a city or if you're new to a town, it can feel hard to get into a music community, even as an attendee. It can feel like you're not part of this clique, or you're not part of this scene, or individual scenes don't play well together, punk scene and hardcore scene, or metal and hip hop or whatever. And it's we're all people, we're all enjoying what's going on. Let's all band together to do this together, and we end up being much more than the sum of our parts, especially in a smaller community like Ithaca. So we really want to bring something that's going to be a safe space, that's run by volunteers, run by individuals who want to contribute their time, and have it be about the heart of the organization versus just a typical show promoter type of situation, where it might be more about maximizing turnout or maximizing, bar sales or something. That it's about, strategically booking things that booking bands and artists that agree with our ethics. And that we get to pair with local musicians. I mean, most of our shows are only 1 to 2 touring acts, and then the rest are locals, whether they be downtown, regional community, or Ithaca College bands, or Cornell bands, or bands that are amalgamations of all of that, and just trying to bring everyone together in the same area.
What launched you into your passion for music and then community, and then combining those two?
That's a really good question. I was involved with like some classical music training when I was young. There was always a lot of music around in my house, but it was always, like Baroque, classical, romantic, or from my father, or on my mom's side, just like Elvis. And I remember really early on, and nobody's going to be able to see this, but just basically like at like age 5 or 6, I was like, I feel like there's music that I can do this to. And I just I went through like every record. So I'm just like thrashing my body around for those of you who are actually listening. And I went through every record and every cassette in the house, and there was just like nothing. Everything was just like kind of like low pace. So I got my first radio from my grandmother, and just like found all these different stations, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for. And I just got really impassioned about it. I just wanted music on all the time. And when I got into my first band in high school, there was it was like Lions Club, whatever. I can't remember the name of that club, but they had this youth space that they'd open. And they would let kids, run these shows. They were like, here's the PA system. Here's how to plug it in. We're going to be standing in the back in case anything weird happens. And they let us run, like, the entire thing. Like, I, for a while, didn't actually know there was, like, an adult there running anything. And so we just got to book it. It always had to be free. And so I got, like, all of my first performances at this really cool, teen center where we just got to do whatever we wanted to. And it showed me, like, well, those are my friends putting this on, like, who were playing with all these cool other high school bands, and it just showed me, this is what we can do if we just band together and do something versus just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. Because there was a venue that allowed for all just shows on like Sunday nights or something like that, but then it stopped, and we were like, well, now where are we going to go? And you had to be on a certain level where they'd even consider you being there, and I was like, well, that's cool if you get to that level, but what do you do in the interim?
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like you've been a part of a lot of DIY communities. I know that sometimes music communities like that can be a little cliquey and fighting for space. And but a lot of Ithaca Underground volunteers and bands mention how there is like no ego in the scene. That no matter what genre you play, no matter who you are, you're always willing to help out other bands. And how do you think that like Ithaca Underground has helped form that kind of like non-ego centric type community?
I mean, I think it's ended up spilling out into other aspects of the community. I think you're seeing more creative, weirder stuff coming through even at the Haunt. Like I know Dan Small started taking some chances on some weirder stuff and some more some things pulling from more subversive genres even, but what we're trying to do is to not only bring a space for the musicians themselves and a way in, but also people who are non-musicians who want to get involved with music. I mean, there's so many people that can get involved from the logistics or outreach or development side of things, and we're just able to do a lot more when we're giving people a chance and an opportunity to show what they can do versus just like, oh, I don't know you, therefore you can't. You're not capable, and especially taking that in from a race and gender and orientation side of things. Like we started doing punk and hardcore shows, and as against authority as a lot of those scenes can talk about, in the end they end up being. They don't necessarily end up being as inclusive as the unity in their lyrics end up being. So. Trying to incorporate that into the mix as well. Yeah. I think I completely circled around that question, but
no. It's okay. No, I got what I was picking up what you're putting down. And so, if people were looking to find more information or to get involved, where could they go?
So we're all over the place online. So ithacaunderground.org is our brand new website. We just launched. We launched it in a month, completely built by our volunteers and our board member Ryan Clover. In a month's time, it was completely insane. So we've got all of our events up there. There's news there. We're training our volunteers now on posting posting, so there's going to be more information up there soon. So we're trying to have that to be like the place to go for all sorts of information. Hopefully, we're going to start doing band interviews and other types of music journalism again, like we did years ago before we got too busy. So if anyone's interested in helping out with that, there's a section on the webpage where you can click to volunteer. So if you go to participate, that's where you can either submit your music if you are in a local band. It's also where you can sign up to volunteer. I think there's also a donate section in there as well. So ithacaunderground.org, just go to the participate page, and that's all the different ways people can get involved. We're also on Facebook, and we've got like 1,500 live videos of what we've been doing over the last 7 years, I think, or so on our YouTube channel. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr when I'm not busy. It kind of falls to the wayside.
No, I understand that. Well, thank you so much for being here, Bubba. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much to VIC for being Ithaca Underground's benefactor for this 50-hour marathon. This has been huge for us.
Good. Well, it was our pleasure. Thank you so much.